need some help now. I'm losing all the pieces of myself now, yeah. I feel so overwhelmed now. I think I need some help now. I'm losing all the pieces of myself now, yeah. I feel so overwhelmed now, but I can't seem to cope. I just know that I'm fucking choking.
What's up, Make Pop Music? It's Austin here from Make Pop Music and Austin Hall Audio, and I am back with another video. And this week I wanted to cover something that we get a lot of questions on, and that is how to mix a Shure SM7B to actually fit in a pop song or in a hip hop song or something like that. A lot of you probably have this mic and use it pretty regularly, and anybody that has it knows it's great for like loud, noisy spaces. It's great for if you have a room that's not really treated, because it will kind of give you that dry, punchy sound that you're kind of looking for in a vocal. However, it does have its setbacks as well. Since it is a dynamic mic and not a condenser mic, you are going to have trouble kind of getting some of that nice smooth top in. Sometimes it can get a little bit muddy and boomy, and sometimes you can have some weird kind of mid resonances. So we are going to be taking a look at this mic today and kind of showing you how I like to mix it in terms of an actual arrangement, and we'll be popping in some tips and tricks. So even if your parameters change on your mix, you'll still probably want to take at least some of the steps that we go over in this video to actually tame that SM7B and get it sounding a little bit more like a shiny condenser mic on your pop track. But before we hop in, I did just want to say one quick thing. We are going to be skipping a video next week. Miranda and I are going on our first vacation in over a year. We have both of our vaccine doses, so we're finally getting out of the house. We've been quarantined for a year. So there won't be a video next Friday, but then the following week we'll be back on our regularly scheduled program. So thank you so much for understanding, and we're excited to kind of get away for a week and then come back fresh and recharged. If you have any questions about this video, let us know in the comments down below and I'll answer whatever I can. If you like the video, please make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps us out a ton. But without further ado, let's actually hop into the computer and take a look at what this raw vocal will sound like versus what it's going to sound like when we actually do some mixing to this. Okay, so let's go ahead and kind of take a look at what we're doing with this raw vocal. I just have auto-tune and then kilohertz gain on it just to kind of make sure that we're getting a little bit of extra volume. So this is what it sounds like coming straight out of the SM7B.
I think I need some help now. I'm losing all the pieces of myself now, yeah.
So you can hear generally it's just kind of dark, muddy, and then like the highs and the high mids kind of have like these weird, really like kind of pokey resonant frequencies. So that's typically what you're going to get with something like an SM7B. It's just like super dark, kind of a downsloped EQ right here, and then the top end is just going to have like a bunch of these weird kind of nasty areas rather than just being kind of silky and smooth. So the raw vocal, I mean, it's not horrible.
I think I need some help now.
But there's definitely a lot of work to be done. So let's go to this just main vocal, and we'll go one thing at a time. So there is going to be a lot that we do to this. So again, this will change song by song, but just remember that especially with something like an SM7B, it can take a lot of EQ and it can take a good bit of compression. So it's probably going to need that if you're really wanting it to sit in the mix like a polished kind of pop vocal. So let's go back to the full mix so you can kind of hear this. So we just have that kind of kilohertz gain on.
I think I need some help now. I'm losing all the pieces of myself now, yeah.
So the first thing that I like to do when I'm working with an SM7B is basically I'm just going to roll off all of this bottom end right here because we're not going to need this. I'll mute it so you can hear it.
Now, yeah.
It's literally just plosives and like weird noise that the SM7B makes on low end. And then weirdly enough, this is not like the only mic that I'll do this on, but I'll roll off all of the top end above like 18,000. There's really not too much there at all. It's just that if we leave that, once we start boosting top end and adding in our own shimmer and sparkle later, that gets super nasty. So since there's nothing good there anyway, I'm just going to cut that out, and then we can add our own air and our own high end a little bit later. And then this is really where the first thing I like to do with an SM7B is. So before I compress, before I put any kind of like boosting EQs, is I'm just going to go through and I'm going to cut a bunch of stuff. So we have this weird kind of resonant frequency right here. And then you can kind of hear it right here as well. And then again right here. So those are just getting rid of a lot of that kind of like low end. Let me go ahead and I'll kind of pull these in one by one so you can hear. So with these three right here, this is going from this.
I think I need some help now. I'm losing all the pieces of myself now, yeah. I feel so overwhelmed now.
And then we've got this really big cut right here, like a 4 dB cut. I'll typically find this anywhere between like 400 and 700, depending on the key of the song and just on the vocalist's actual voice. So we have something like this.
I think I need some help now. I'm losing all the pieces of myself now, yeah.
And that's just gonna get rid of that kind of like nasally, kind of honky frequency that nobody really likes in a vocal. So now with those 4 in, we have something like this.
I think I need some help now. I'm losing all the pieces of myself.
And in the mix, we're really starting to get it sitting a little bit better.
I think I need some help now. I'm losing all the pieces of myself now, yeah.
But with EQ, since it kind of works like a seesaw, when you start taking away low end, the high end is going to get kind of weird and honky. So we're just going to do a couple kind of more subtle things. So nothing on this is super subtle. Like the smallest change we have is like almost 2 dB. But since we've taken so much out of those low mids, I want to go ahead and just kind of tame these high mids right here. So I'll play that with a mix.
I think I need some help now.
And then I'm gonna do my first dynamic cut right here, just because as I go to a certain note, there's like this really pokey frequency that keeps popping out, and I wanna just tame that, so I'm gonna tame that with some dynamic EQ right here.
I think I need some help myself now, yeah. I feel so overwhelmed now, but I can't seem.
And we're already in a lot better shape. Then I'm just taking away a couple more weird resonances. And again, this will change depending on your song, your voice, and your actual room. But that's the first thing I do, is some kind of tone shaping EQ like this before I add any compression or anything. So let's take a listen now with and without this EQ.
I think I need some help now. I'm losing all the pieces of myself now, yeah. I feel so overwhelmed now, but I can't seem to cope.
And that's just giving us that more kind of scooped, tamed, low kind of mid, and just smoother kind of high mid. And then that way, once we go in and we compress, it's not going to just fall apart immediately. Because if you don't tame that, once you start hitting this with good compression, it's just going to sound disgusting. So now we're going to go to some compression. I've just got a 1/16 modern because I don't really need any like big mid push with like the vintage. And then a 2-way just to kind of give me a little bit of compression. You can copy these settings. There's really nothing outside the norm happening on this.
I think I need some help now. I'm losing all the pieces of myself now, yeah.
So you can see we're getting some good compression, nothing crazy, but we are starting to get some sibilance, especially since we've kind of scooped out so many of those lows and low mids. So I'm just gonna start with something simple like RX De-esser.
I think I need some help now. I'm losing all the pieces of myself now, yeah.
And it's not doing too much, but it's doing just enough. So we've kind of tamed. Now I'm just going to go through and kind of do my more broad stroked EQ. So the first EQ is really to just make the SM7B not sound like an SM7B. And then this one is kind of like if I started with a condenser, where I would start to just kind of, tame my own kind of voice and shape my own kind of sound. So we're just going to do a big kind of dynamic scoop here, taking like 3 dB off. And then this one's a bit more subtle. It's like 2.5 dB at 600 and 2.5 again at 26. And these are frequencies that we have kind of already cut and tamed, but once that compression came back in, they just got boosted up a little more than I would like. So here's what that kind of sounds like without this EQ.
I think I need some help now. I'm losing all the pieces of myself now, yeah.
So this one right here is really doing a lot of work. This one's doing.
I'm losing all the pieces of my.
So that one's really important to kind of just make sure that we're not getting any of those boom kind of resonant frequencies. And then we have this one to just tame those mids once more.
I think I need some help now. I'm losing all the pieces of myself now, yeah.
And then this one, because there's like this really sharp kind of top end that I don't love.
Oh yeah.
So for my personal voice and for this track, those are areas that I felt like needed to be cut. So here's what it sounds like after that. And again, I'm just doing another kind of low end roll off, because compressors a lot of the time, especially the vintage modeled ones, will start to bring in this like low end. And I don't really want anything because there's nothing down there that I need.
I think I need some help now. I'm losing all the pieces of myself now, yeah. I feel so overwhelmed now.
So I'm gonna add a little bit of fresh air right now just to kind of bring in like a high-end shelf, because we're about to de-ess this pretty hard, but I wanna make sure before we do that, I'm getting a nice little bit of top end that is a bit smoother and a bit more natural sounding. So I've just got fresh air to kind of bring that in.
I think I need some help now. I'm losing all the pieces of myself now, yeah.
And it sounds weird, but like, I like to boost top end a lot of the time before I'll hit a de-esser, because I like to kind of smooth that top end out to where I can really hone in on that de-esser and make sure that I'm only hitting the sibilants, and it's not going to darken that entire vocal that then I have to boost again afterwards, which will then boost the sibilance. So I like to get that right where I need to be, and then I'll kind of tame it with something like this. So now I'm going to bring in Pro De-esser. It's a little bit more finessed than the RX De-esser, and this is really going to hit some of those top end sibilants kind of pokes that you're hearing here and there.
I think I need some help now. I'm losing all the pieces of myself now, yeah. I feel so overwhelmed now, but I can't seem to cope. I just know that I'm fucking choking.
And with the SM7B, I will de-ess them kind of hard, and the whole mix, I might dial this back like a dB or two. I'm sure on the video that y'all are hearing, since it is going through a couple different audio drivers, it'll have even more top end pulled off, so it might sound a little bit lispy. But on my end, it's good to go, but this is absolutely as much as I would possibly want to de-ess. And then once I do that, I'm gonna just go back in one more time and kind of tame the lows and these high mids with some dynamic compression.
I think I need some help now. I'm losing all the pieces of myself now. I feel so overwhelmed now. I can't seem to cope. I just know that I'm fucking choking.
And that's pretty much all that'll need. So I'll show you without any of these sends on.
I think I need some help now. I'm losing all the pieces of myself now, yeah. I feel so overwhelmed now.
And then the last couple things that I'll do is I like to just throw on RVox to just give me a little bit more compression, kind of last minute after we've kind of tamed up everything.
I think I need some help now. I'm losing all the pieces of myself now, yeah.
Just to kind of squeeze it a little bit more. And then we've got our last little EQ right here where I'll do my last little bit of shaping. So I'm gonna brick wall everything below like 100, which is normally insane on a vocal, but it just kind of works with the SM7B.
Myself.
You can kind of hear we're not getting anything down there. It's just this really kind of boomy, plosive kind of thing happening here and there. And then again with this high end, I'm gonna cut off everything above like 1600 because it's not really adding much to the track. So I'll kind of show you what it sounds like with and without it. It's just really bright and pokey. It's not smooth air, so I'll, you know, kind of mute all these. But here's what that sounds like.
I think I need some help now. I'm losing all the pieces of myself now, yeah.
Just pretty subtle, so it's not doing anything too major. And then I'm just doing a little dynamic cut right here, again, between those low mids because I don't want them, and then taming some of these high-end kind of mids. And then the biggest thing on this is kind of this pretty large dynamic EQ right here. And it's kind of like a de-esser. It's hitting like right around 5500, but it's just this like really nasally sharp frequency that's not even coming through on sibilants. It's just kind of coming through all the time, especially when I'll go up and I'll hit my higher register. So all of that together sounds like this.
I think I need some help now. I'm losing all the pieces of myself now, yeah. I feel so overwhelmed now, but I can't seem to cope. I just know that I'm
And you don't have to do this. This is one of those steps, like honestly, you could probably end it after the RVox that we just did. I just like to tame this, and for me, this is like where I kind of like my own personal voice to sit. So I just went in and did that. If you are gonna do this, another thing that you could do that's absolutely not necessary but could definitely help is gonna be throwing on something like Soothe. This is one of my favorite plugins at the moment, and it's really, really great for things like this, where there's a lot of weird high-end harmonics that, you know, you can do so much EQ, it's just not ever gonna really do it. So I just started with one of their presets and then added a couple more bands. So this is basically exactly what I did from my vocal on this, and you can hear that it'll just start to bring in some of those high mids that are kind of whiny and honky. So check this out.
I think I need some help now. I'm losing all the pieces of myself now, yeah. I feel so overwhelmed now, but I can't seem to cope. I just know that I'm fucking choking. I think I need.
All right, so that is coming from this.
I think I need some help now. I'm losing all the pieces of myself now, yeah. I feel so overwhelmed now, but
So that's pretty much how I'll mix the main vocal. And then when I'm using something like a SM7B or a mic that's maybe not the perfect mic for the vocalist, I'll try to fill out some extra space with just some vocal production stuff where it'll kind of take the listener's ear off of just like perfect mic quality. So one thing that I like to do, since I've pulled out so much of the low end for this SM7B, is I'll go ahead and I'll add like the stereo low vocal that I do all the time. And all I'll do for this is I'll just turn it down an entire octave in auto-tune right here, -12 on the transpose, and then I'll throw on like a doubler to kind of spread it out. And then when you mix that with the main vocal, it just kind of gives you this nice extra texture, and it'll kind of thicken up that vocal. So you could even filter out more of the top end if you really just want this for the thickness and you don't really want to hear it at all. I don't mind hearing it. It kind of fits my style and it fits the song at hand.
It's getting late and I'm faded now. Lost control again, can I make it out? I just self-destruct when I'm making ground. I think I need some help now. I'm losing all the pieces of myself now.
And that's pretty much it for that. And then I just do a couple delay throws here and there just to kind of give the listener something to listen to besides. You know, the SM7B can be kind of a noisy mic, especially because you have to drive it. So I'm going to give them some delay throws here and there to kind of take their mind off of some of that noise ending.
I circle back around. I know I make excuses. I can't explain. I think I need some help now. I'm losing all the pieces of myself now, yeah. I feel so overwhelmed now, but I can't seem to cope.
And that's typically what I'll do. So it's all just about taming that mic, kind of getting it to sound a little bit more like a condenser. I find that when you scoop a lot of those lows and those low mids and you can really tame the high end resonances, it'll kind of open that mic up and it won't sound so kind of dynamic and you know, you won't just sound like a radio talk host. It'll kind of start to give you some dimension to your voice. So again, I'll give you guys one more preview where we show you the raw versus the final, but that's pretty much it.
I think I need some help now. I'm losing all the pieces of myself now, yeah.
And then here we go.
I think I need some help now. I'm losing all the pieces of myself now, yeah. I feel so overwhelmed now.
And that is pretty much it. The only thing I didn't talk about is the vocal sends, but they're the same thing that we do in every video. So a parallel widening, that's just a Roland Dimension D, a short reverb, a slap delay, a long delay, and a stereo Vox delay. So those are all the same things that we've done in pretty much any tutorial or where we'll mix vocals, so I didn't want to kind of highlight those. Even without those though, the SM7B is still sounding much better. So here it is dry.
I think I need some help now. I'm losing all the pieces of myself now, yeah. I feel so overwhelmed now.
And that just gives it the space and the dimension that it needs, especially to kind of smooth out some of those harsh top end kind of things that we still have going on. But that's pretty much all that I will do for an SM7B. And there you have it. That is what I like to do with an SM7B. Typically, it's really just about kind of taming the muddy low end and taming some of those weird kind of mid resonant frequencies, since it's not like a smooth, you know, FET or tube condenser mic. You do just have to do a little bit of that smoothing before you go in and do some gnarly compression. But if you can tame it, then you kind of have an easy starting point where you would with a more kind of budget-friendly condenser where you can just add your own EQ and compression and shine. So hopefully this video helped. If you have any questions, again, let me know in the comments down below and I'll answer whatever I can. And then other than that, if you like this video, please make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And if you want to check out more of our content, you can head over to makepopmusic.com where you can see all of our free and paid content over there. But that's going to do it for this video. We won't see you guys next week, but we'll see you guys the following week. And as for now, much love and peace out.